What I was going to ask you earlier was the mobile response. Did you say you had something turned into that? 2885. And then, oh, and then the operation over 5776. So we'll use 5776. I'll copy it. Okay. Yeah. You wouldn't want to bother him about the $24,000 and ask him how he got for the fastest. It's for COVID court for stuff that you got grant for.
Do you want to send me all the time?
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah.
There's a cold meeting order. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda is our assessor, Michelle.
I did look it over and it is what we asked for in our specs there. That's what they're bidding for, so. And the contract itself is the state prescribed form just with their information filled in. So I don't know if you guys had any other questions about it or.
Since that last meeting, what was the difference in price? It wasn't very much. Was it?
It was less than what I thought they were gonna ask for. I had, and it's less than what I had budgeted for. It's more than what their contract was last year because of inflation and John is here and he did some work up on why the cost went up. Like the price of gas and everything for driving around the county and all of that, which we all know is up. If you wanted to see any of that, he did some justification on why it's up from last time. But it is less than I thought it was gonna be and less than I had put in the budget for.
Was about $8,000 more, wasn't it?
Yeah, than last year. She had budgeted for like, it was like $25,000 more, but it's not $25,000 more.
And I know like the 4 years previous to that had been higher and they lowered it because our parcel count had gone down. And they probably shouldn't have because then inflation, all this inflation has hit. And so it's kind of, they had to increase back to what they had before.
I thought it was a reasonable increase. But the bid ended up being, not what it was budgeted, but what the bid ended up being.
We just have to prove that, right, or the bid.
There's 2 copies. I don't know if you guys wanted to look at any of it.
How would they word that to approve it, Marty?
Was approved extension of the contract is bid.
Okay.
Consulting services for accurate assessments, correct?
Was there a motion to approve that bid?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
And do you need both of those copies signed? Are you taking one
I
back?
think so, because I have to keep one on file and I think I have to mail one to the DLGF.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2
And
places
then-
to sign on.
Yeah, I kind of marked the pages,
Okay.
so I
Go
can,
ahead and have them sign them now and then they can give them back to you.
okay. Let's see, this one, the commissioner's signatures are there. One is the other one. And then the other spot the commissioners sign is that. Nope, the next one.
Place for me to sign.
Yes. And then I did have a question, Rachel. Do you submit that contract then into Gateway or do I do it?
You do it. I've never, I don't know.
Because I've never done it before. That was something new
Yeah.
and so I didn't know.
I-
We were told
underline-
that the last conference that it would be either us or the auditor, so I wasn't sure.
Okay. I've
So,
never seen an assessor area under what comes up for me,
okay,
but if you don't have anything, then we'll figure it out.
okay. Well, maybe I'll get with you later on that. you. Thank you.
And it has Mary Karen here for the Starke County Economic Development.
I'm wearing my constellation of Starke hat this evening, gentlemen. Wanted to ask you to consider approval of an additional $4,500 in consulting expenses to Troyer Group. This is for the Constellation of Starke finalist projects. The county's portion of the Bass Lake Trailhead and Coons Lake Pavilion. They were previously bid and came in way over budget, and you all rejected those bids. They are revising the bid specs and looking to have those back out to bid early next year in hopes of getting some more favorable consideration to get that done. This is the $333,000. The money that's being spent on this is the $333,000 in runner-up money from being a finalist for the Stellar Communities designation. And Troyer Group just has to do some changes to those bid specs in hopes of bringing that more in line favorably, and just need the additional funds to do that. The amounts on the addendum, again, it's a total of $8,300 for everything, but of that, $2,700 is the Bass Lake Trailhead, $1,800 is the Coons Lake Pavilion. Those are the two county projects. Then the city of Knox, $2,200 for Wythogan Park improvements, and then $1,600 from the town of North Judson for Norwayne Field. So that's why I'm here tonight and would appreciate your favorable consideration of that.
I mean, it's this far along when they're doing it. So.
Yeah.
So the county's portion, I mean, how it was discussed last year, the year before, I don't even remember. The county's portion was to be paid out of seeded, out of the half that the highway gets
Mhm.
for, surprise, Dan. So you can, they have money in there for even this year to pay that for extra $4,500 from. Mary, do you think you could have an invoice for me by December 20th?
Yeah,
Because we can at least encumber that money. The first
absolutely. I'll
payroll.
get
the first
that
pay
from
in
Mike
June. Okay.
tomorrow.
That's where we got pulled from. Is that all right, Dan? I mean,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, that's kind of the idea of what it was before, so I think we gotta stick to it here.
And hopefully these bids will come in more favorably. What they've done with this, when they rebid it, so it's more, it's a base bid with other things that can be added in. So they won't have to reject it out of hand if things come in way over budget, but they're bidding components of it separately. So they just had to restructure the way the bid documents are being done, and hopefully too, bidding it in the winter for spring work. They'll get the contractors when they're hungry and looking to get work on the books. As we bid it this time, they already had their work lined up for the season. Materials costs were high and that's starting to come back down. So we're hoping for some more favorable consideration, but the thought is we'll be able to go forward with this as bid. We just need to get it there so we can get those documents prepared and get that all advertised.
So what happens if conditions aren't favorable? And we wind up in a situation similar to when we had to reject those bids last time?
From what they've told us, it would just be, you have to have complete projects
Mhm.
with this. For instance, the Bass Lake Trailhead is restrooms. So that has to have water and sewer connections. But instead of, a paved parking lot, it could be a gravel, it could be, an unpaved surface. They could come back and do that later. There are things that could be left out of it that would still make it a whole and complete project. And, there are less expensive options. And the consultants seem to think that it will still be within the scope of what is affordable. If it comes to that, that would be a decision for the people who are sitting where you guys are sitting, but they seem to think that it can be done and scaled back adequately to make that happen. The Coons Lake Pavilion, that's just an open structure that's fairly inexpensive in the scope of things. The Knox project is a park shelter. They are making the electrical connections for that, not part of the base bid. Of course, everyone would like to have electricity run to a park shelter, but that is not going to be something that would keep the project necessarily from going forward if that is out of the realm of affordability. So a lot of the bigger ticket items are going to be in there as options.
You guys want to go ahead with it then? I'd say yes.
We want to give the money back that we got to do these projects anyway, so yeah, we gotta. This is a necessary step to get the bids that we want and to be able to actually do this. So I'll make the motion that we what's the right way to word this?
Probably to accept the additional cost of $4,500
Yeah.
to the Troyer Group.
Make the motion to accept the additional $4,500 to the Trevor Group for these services.
Brian, if you want to give that other one to Charlie, if Charlie, can you sign both of those and then I'll keep one, you can give one to Mary.
Mark made the motion, Brian, second, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Anybody want my copy?
Don't say I never gave you anything. What that migraine
The one
I
that
gave
has
you,
the
and I
sign
just-
here, give me back that
The gift
one.
you keep on giving
Yeah.
her.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know it.
Dan, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. I've asked USI to come in tonight to help with an on-call. Sure.
Hello.
This is Maggie from USI. So we're asking for an on-call
agreement.
agreement to help with the community crossings. This is my first time going around with this project. So we want to make sure we get all the i's dotted and the t's crossed. So with their help, which they've done this many a times, we can be assured that we won't miss anything. And we're going to try to get as much as we possibly can.
So there's two items to be executed. The first one is the actual on-call agreement, which is pretty much the standard language, pre-approving it, and then to go into contract for work, you would execute Appendix E, which is the authorization to proceed. So once you execute the on-call contract, you would next sign the authorization to proceed, which is the contract to move forward with the 2022 Community Crossing Expansion Grant, which we would help scope the project, prepare the estimates, the application process. Once it was awarded, we would design the project, prepare the bid documents, do the notice to bidders for you guys, and then construction inspection.
Thoughts? I over who goes first down at the end of the table.
How much and where are you paying it from? Okay, I know how much, where are you paying it from?
I'm not sure. I believe we had an on-call agreement last year with GPR. So it'd be wherever that was pulled from.
I guess it's probably your seat at roadway funding. That's usually where you pay your grant matches from, at least. It's probably.
I didn't remember I don't remember seeing a contract quite like this last time. Maybe maybe it didn't come across. It's a good contract. I mean, outside that, the contract is very straightforward, very clear. Still, I think it's very fair. So it's just a matter of the money, I think.
Do we have any high-end estimates on how much this might wind up costing me, how much you might need then?
If they were to do everything, I believe it's 50,000.
50,000 for professional services, your construction cost, if you guys were awarded the full amount, assuming you're going for the full amount, that's my understanding that you guys do. It comes out to like 1.3 million. With the
That
construction
would
fee.
require bidding though, at that point. Wouldn't you have to bid for those? You know, it's like a $1.3 million project. I mean, this is $50,000, but you know,
That's just for these services.
for these services, but not for the design services, right?
Right.
No,
we
that
would-
is design service.
But wouldn't the design service, okay, so the whole total amount of the contract's 50,000?
There's the on-call contract, which is just the standard language.
Uh-huh,
And then we execute the authorization to proceed, which is 50,000, and that is to do the scoping, prepare the
Okay.
application, the design, and the construction inspection once it's constructed. Assuming you guys get the full 1.3 million for construction.
If we get the 1.3 million, what's our grant match? What do we have to match?
25%.
And do you have any other projects going on next year that we have to match? I'm just getting at, like, next year, you're allotted $750,000.
Well, we just got the second call that we're doing, and then this would be, if this gets approved in the first call. So there could be 2 projects for next year.
I'm just making sure we have, we have $750,000, do we have enough to match what we're going for?
Everything that we're gonna go
Yeah.
for.
We can help review that budget with them too. and
Okay.
Do the scoping process.
Then I would say, yeah.
I just want to understand that, what we're agreeing to here is $50,000, but for that additional, that would require a bid process, would it not? I mean, like we're talking 1.3 million, that would be,
Yeah, to whoever's gonna do the project, yes.
right, okay.
Which goes through
Well,
the
50,000
NDOT.
We have to get the grant first and then we can bid it out.
Yeah, right, no, but I just want to make sure that it's
Yeah.
clear that that's not what this contract's for,
Right,
right?
no,
Okay,
yeah, this,
right.
Yeah. you're
it
right.
doesn't, yeah, this doesn't mention anything about anything.
No, I didn't see anything in there like that. I just wanted to be clear that this is for the consulting services.
Yeah.
That's-
Just for 50,000.
50,000.
I make a motion. We do the on-call professional service agreement with USI Consultant.
Second.
It's about 50,000.
Mark has a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You have a copy for them to sign tonight? An extra copy?
The on-call. Signatures are there. And then the first authorization to proceed to the on-call. for 50,000.
Take care of that on. It's just the one line, so that's you.
Again.
Anything else first, Dave?
I just wanted to bring up the road usage agreement, where we're at on that,
Mhm.
since I hear we're losing somebody at the end of the year.
Well, I have the proposed agreement with Barnes and Thornburg here, which I suggest that, it seems like the decision has been made to go ahead with that, I think, right? So, I need to give that to them so they can start actually, perform. I don't see any problem with it. The understanding with it is that their fees, which are not cheap, are going to be paid for by the developers. And he agreed that if for some reason this should not happen, that, that they're not going to expect the county to pay that. So it doesn't seem too likely that'll happen.
How exactly does the mechanism for having the developer pay for that service?
It's part of the agreement with them. And that's in fact some of the, like the agreement from one of the developers included that as a term. Well, we never came to an agreement with them because we had some issues that we hadn't been able to agree on yet. I hope this will help you with the process.
Okay.
I think it will. And I think it's mutually beneficial to both the developers and the county and the community to have consistency with neighboring counties. It's one of the things about the road use agreement. I think we really wanted to have a standard form essentially, unless there's a reason to vary from it. And that's fine. And this attorney understands that if the county does want something different, of course, that, we're not going to have to do exactly the same thing as what everybody else did. But I think most cases, the uniformity is going to be beneficial.
One thing that came out of last week's commissioners convention was we're going to try to get Starke County, Pulaski County, and White County. We would like to get the commissioners with the highway superintendents with the lawyers and just do exactly what Marty said, was everyone be on the same page.
Can we do that in the next 2 weeks?
It's up to you guys, I guess.
Because we need this ASAFP.
Well, I think, they have a road use agreement. I mean, that's the main thing we're talking about. Talking about the road use agreement. They have it done essentially. It's just a matter of having a contract with them so that they'll deliver it.
Okay.
I mean, I think, I send this to them. I'll send it to them tomorrow, and probably by the end of the week, you should have it.
All right.
I will emphasize to them the importance of making this happen.
Okay. Yeah, as far as coordinating all of us getting together, you've got the ball.
You'd like to get it done next 2 weeks?
And I apologize for taking a while, but I really thought it was important to be consistent with this.
Yeah.
So we had to go through this process.
Makes sense. So there's no specific action we need to take on this now, but
Well, do you want to hire them to do the
Yeah.
road usage? I mean, if you do, you need to make a
A
motion.
motion
for it.
and like a signature on, so I can send it in to them.
yeah, I'll make the motion.
Not just the road use agreement, but actually
Well, yeah,
represent us on
to
the whole,
represent us, yeah, yeah.
thing, the whole spectrum of the project. That's the initial deliverable. of-
Yeah,
I'll make the motion that we employ Barnes and Thornburg to work with us in creating the road use agreement.
All those in
is it
favor?
for me? or
Well, it's for all of them,
For all of
really.
them.
It's for all of them, actually.
So they did, you guys don't have an agreement drawn up yet, or? what's
We do
the-
with Mammoth, actually, but we don't have the specifics of the road use agreement.
Okay.
It's we have an MOU, which doesn't flesh out all the details.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we got to get those devilish details.
That's what we're.
Stamp that, yeah. How are we looking for drivers? For plows?
Yes, 4.
We'll need 4 more?
Yes. And we put an ad out for part-time help.
Yeah.
Currently, our part-time help has mostly been for summer help from running mowers, and that pay is like $14.50 an hour. So we really need to bump up the pay for CDL drivers for winter part-time help. I'd like to $18.50 an hour for them.
Well, that's an involved process.
What does the state think? For the part-time,
I think they're paying the $24.
I'd really like to see some other person.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard rumor that it's above 20.
Numbers first, but I think I thought it was 20.
I could put you on the agenda for the council meeting if you'd like.
I would love that.
You know what, I was actually gonna ask about that after this, but I wanted to go through that truck inventory with you anyway, so like, I was gonna ask if you could attend our meeting anyways. We can make that another. I want to just talk about the choice between what style you want to go. And some other things, so.
Okay.
Because being down 4 drivers, that's what, 36 hours a day? We're missing out on plow time?
Sure.
Yeah. That might have a negative impact on travel throughout the county.
Yeah, that's, I mean, you could have the other drivers try making up for it. Ain't gonna happen.
That's, yeah, out of,
That's not
you
gonna
got,
happen.
with that, down that many, you're only got how many people that can drive plow?
Well, we have some pickups with plows that we could send into subdivisions, but I mean, for the big trucks, we're short 4 drivers.
Right, so you have how many?
I think it's 13 of them.
Okay,
He does have, I mean, just emergency cases, he does have the foreman and the sign man who can get in plow trucks
Yeah.
and take care of 2 of those areas
One of the mechanics.
and one of the mechanics, so.
Jump there.
we get heavy snow, it's probably gonna
Yeah.
happen. And it's only a matter of time.
Just a quick question on that, though. I was actually gonna bring this up at our meeting when we talked about the truck that you contacted me about. Just want to make sure, I mean, somebody that's been driving fire trucks for a big portion of my life and heavy trucks and how they act on wet and slick roads, icy roads, and just with some of the history we've had more recently. Are we planning some driver's training to also cover some more of what happens on those types of environments? I mean, whenever I go to when I see that truck out there, I just think about, just not only the truck itself, but also the safety of our staff, and especially if we're gonna bring in transient staff, if there's some way to make sure that they have some winter driving training, and if that makes sense to the commissioners, but.
The drivers have gone through a simulator already. And we've sent them out to the territories twice with the plows on with no snow. It was good conditions to get the feel of the plow, how far they stick out in the intersection. I'm hoping to reach out to Kosciuszko County. Their superintendent gives snow plowing training for LTAP.
Yeah, well, LaPorte County does LTAP snow training too, don't they?
I don't think
What's her name?
Dwayne
Maybe. Yeah.
Warner's the superintendent there.
Anyways, the person they're working with the state, I thought they were gonna do some stuff. I guess it's what worries me is, I know like the current staff that we have are like onboard staff. I'm just afraid like the part-time staff, if there's some way to make sure they have some winter driving training, when we recruit them, not just, hey, like they have a CDL, but in addition to that, they've driven some kind of a plow equipment, of course, and I'm just worried about that.
I was down in White County today and we were talking about that, and they do a walk around. They bring the truck in and they walk around with the driver and show them everything that could go wrong.
They as an LTAP when they do the training, or you're
No.
saying this, them personally when they do it?
They personally do this. That's part of their training is. They give the driver a list of everything you should have in the truck.
Do we make a training record even for part-time people when they come in, the walk around, the discussions of all that kind of thing as part of their training file?
Yes, when we do training, there's documentation.
And I believe Mark Ennis was planning on doing the classroom part of the training whenever you were available.
Yeah,
Carrie
he's gonna
just
come back.
let us know with that. So you might want to get a hold of Mark Ennis to come back and do the classroom part of the snowplow training.
Maybe we'll have the part-time people found by then and they can join it. Is that what we're thinking?
Hopefully. Nice. I'll say I'm impressed with how we've reached out to the neighboring counties to get a good feel on how things should be executed. I mean, it's pretty great the way you've worked with White and Kosciuszko and Alaska and all of them.
Marshall.
So appreciate that. And you for staying on top of this as best you can.
We're doing the best we can with what we got.
Much more than that.
So. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Is there a motion to approve the vendor claims in the amount of $240,709.72?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Almost time to start writing 22 on those. This was a quick year. It took forever.
Motion to approve the payroll claims in the amount of $263,288.13.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is the other payroll claims. Is there a motion to approve the payroll in the amount of $248,654.42?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve our minutes from Monday, November 15th, 2021 and Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. That was the joint meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye. I don't think so.
Marty, you got anything for us? Rachel? Anyone else have something for us this evening?
You're done with the regular meeting?
Yep, we're taking comments and concerns now, public discussion.
Couple of things. I'm concerned about this investigator that is working at the jail. I'm not sure if a claim was submitted on his behalf tonight. No, okay, but you have approved claims for him, and he's been paid out of the general, wherever payroll fund or wherever fund it is.
Not payroll,
What fund?
I believe out of the jail fund.
Okay. And this payment is allegedly due to a contract which was signed. You denied signing it, and you did. You said you would look into it. Have you?
Did I say this?
I think you spoke to the prosecutor. She had a question for you about that. We're made aware of the situation, and you said you would look into it.
Yeah, I didn't find any claims for this contract paid out of general, so I left it.
The contract is a contract that
What fund did we pay him out of?
would have to enter into with this individual or the sheriff's
So
department.
in the beginning, when we hired Brett, he was hired to contract. He met with Leslie, contract was signed. We pay him out of commissary, and through commissary, it is contracted that we are allowed to hire a professional contractor. And IT code, if you would like to copy it.
Have a statute,
Have we paid him out
which is
of
not correct.
general fund?
We actually.
They can't use the
we actually
commissary
was
funds for
looking
that
at
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah.
And then we did provide her with any.
And look at the next page. You're supposed to file a semi-annual report.
They do file a monthly financial report.
Yeah, it's monthly, but I will say also too that commissary, since I started on the council, the commissary has not been completely clear to me, but I've learned more about it as time went on. And so we get audited annually, obviously. Is the audit published?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, because I thought it was, but there's another thing, we can't talk about everything until, the publication happens as well. But so after we go through a state audit, Charlie and myself, or, whoever would be the presidents of the joint executive bodies meet with the auditors. And so what happens is different areas get audited. The jail gets audited as well, and the commissary is one of those. And so in my history, that's always been a contention. Like, we don't really watch commissary that closely, but we ask for reports to know what's being purchased out of there. And so by statute, a semi-annual report is required. And so
Listing all the disbursements and income.
and actually, we
Not-
could even put an ordinance in if we wanted to require appropriations, but appropriations are not required. So, but one of the things that I sit in and during, my part of my questions were with the commissary also. And so we go line by line and we look at what's bought. And by statute, there are certain things that can be purchased and spent on that fund. And so we reviewed that with the auditors. And everything was, with anything, there was some guidance, but everything, checked out with the audit. So I did ask Rachel after that meeting that we would have a meeting with Pam and Bill to go, just go over what would have been there, because there's so many things going on this year, and then with COVID and everything else, we didn't have our semi-annual audit per se as notifying everybody that was happening in June, like we normally should have or would have. But we were expecting Pam to come, and they're planning on coming still, I think, to our next meeting for the next 6 months, and we'll discuss, what was spent out of that fund. I wasn't personally aware of, the consultant or the investigator being paid out of there, but up into the
Not
audit.
fully paid out of there, though, not fully paid out.
Right, but at that point though, the last contact I had with the commissary fund was with the state auditors, and at that time, everything was, they hadn't caught anything like that as being the problem. And then we had already been planning on meeting at our meeting that will occur on the 20th to discuss the annual, activity of the commissary.
There's not one semi-annual report that's been filed with the auditor.
They do file a monthly financial report as according to our ordinance that was created back in 2016.
Well, the state statute overrides a local ordinance that's not stronger than the state statute. And you told me when I asked you, what did they submit? You said check statements. So you don't get any idea of what the disbursements and income is. This says semi-annual list of all disbursements and income. So we have to know where the money is going.
Yeah, it's a financial report. It's the same thing we submit to Gateway. It's the same financial report that we submit semi-annually. It's the same exact thing. It's the same thing that gets submitted to Gateway.
Apparently, she doesn't think so. I asked for it. She didn't have it. She says just monthly, and it's just a check statement.
It hasn't been
You can see that
cumulative
if you
this
want
year.
to
I think
come
part of
look
that
at
is
it.
on me. on
Yeah,
council.
Marty,
I mean,
Public record, right?
if you want to come see what they submit monthly, you can come to my office and see what
I
they
did,
submit
I
monthly.
was there the other
No,
day.
but I didn't know you wanted to see what was submitted monthly. So if you want to see it, we can provide that for you.
And I have asked Pam, we are gonna start doing the semi-annual again. We just said, we just didn't do it. We're gonna do it in December. And after that, we've already made plans.
Whatever
to
you guys
do
want.
But
that.
I didn't think there
Also.
was a need to see it because I asked you what they put on the report and they didn't list disbursements, okay? I wanted to see each individual disbursement.
Which you can, you can. I don't go through and I don't, review every single disbursement and receipt that comes in because the state auditors do that. So I may not have known what exactly is always submitted, but you're welcome to go through those.
Okay, now how about the other payment he receives from the county? What's that paid out of?
I don't have my financials up, so I can't look them up as a
Okay.
vendor, so I'm not
But
sure.
that's not paid out of any commissary fund or anything like that. It's paid general out of a county fund.
Have we
Right.
paid him out of a county fund?
Yes, we were told that we can pay him as a contractor as long as we do not exceed our budget.
Do you know
We have
if-
not exceeded our budget and we have not asked for any more
Isn't,
funds.
So
isn't,
was that at a county general, like,
isn't she the
sheriff
one,
or-
I have to,
yeah, I
isn't
don't
she
know.
the one that told you that there was a signed contract? And you've never seen the signed contract?
I don't know about a signed contract. Leslie asked me about a signed contract, but I
Okay.
don't recall a
Leslie
signed
was
contract.
a part of the signed contract. She was brought into this meeting. She was a part of this in the beginning. She knows of the signed contract, so I'm not real sure what the.
So an independent contractor,
When did this contract get signed?
February of this year.
By Leslie.
Let's back up a minute. Let's talk about why we have an investigator, Marty. The reason we have an investigator is because the prosecutor's office conducted a so-called investigation into one of our officers about stealing evidence. Okay, she sat on that evidence for 2.5 years, never done nothing for 2.5 years. While this man is still working in control of my evidence room, turning in reports to the state police and everything out, and I'm none to the wiser.
oh, come on, Bill.
Hey, that's a fact.
Oh, yeah, that's
That's
a
a
fact,
fact.
yeah. That's a
So what we
fact.
done was we hired an independent contractor because the state police wouldn't talk to us. The FBI wouldn't talk to us, and I talked to Leslie and asked her if there was an investigation going into it, and she said no. So that right there is a lie.
Wait,
That's why-
That's why we hired this special investigator.
This started 2 years ago?
Yeah,
You had somebody in your office that was.
I
stealing
never
from
had
you
any, well,
For 2
I did,
years and you
and
didn't
he
notice.
confessed it to the prosecutor right over here on the courthouse lawn, and nothing was ever told to me, the county attorney.
See, I thought this started up this year.
It did because of me. Because
But
I
he was
found
stealing
out,
from you for 2 years and you didn't notice.
excuse me?
He was stealing from you for 2 years and you didn't notice?
Yeah. But he confessed it to the prosecutor who failed to tell me for 2 years. And then there's a thing called the Brady Giglio Act, correct, Marty? And you know all about that. What that is basically, if a prosecutor deems an officer a Brady Giglio, they are no longer deemed to testify or sign reports or anything. She has failed to do that too. So he turned in reports for 2 years, confessed to her that he was taking evidence, and nothing was ever said.
Okay, she's not here to defend herself.
Well, tell me why
And
she's
he
here. I
doesn't-
got my
he
mom and
doesn't-
dad here. I'm the elected official.
Yeah,
My mom and dad's not here to defend me.
so I'm defending her, I'm not defending her, I'm questioning what's going on with all this money.
Marty, you can come up to our office, bring Leslie, bring whoever you want. You can bring
This is
Marty
why,
Lucas if you
this
want.
is why the surrounding counties laugh at us.
They laugh at
He's
us because we have a
he's
prosecutor that has
conducting an
failed to sign
investigation.
200 and some
Charlie-
criminal reports. That's
Charlie,
what the
could I
problem
just
is.
ask though, like, just Marty, just so to your point, so it's that way, like, let's not get into things that are like outside of this particular meeting, but as far as I know, you can use commissary funds for supplementing
That
things.
sets out everything you could use it for.
Right, so
And
are you
it's not
saying
there.
that, are you saying supplementing the investigator does not
Yes,
qualify?
you
under-
can do that.
Because I think,
It's not listed there, is it?
let me
There
see,
you
I think,
Marty, you were looking at it?
I think it's discretionary. I
Hang on,
think
Marty.
it's basically if you want to supplement almost anything out of commissary, honestly,
You
like,
We purchase stuff for the cars. that the county doesn't.
I remember we purchased washing machines, like there's all different kinds of things, but we've also.
For use in the jail. For use in
Any,
the jail.
any other purpose that benefits the sheriff's department that is mutually agreed upon by the county fiscal.
And we
body.
have that.
You have that.
Yeah, we have that, Marty. All you gotta do is ask.
I
me.
think there may be an oversight on the council's part that we specifically did not know per se. We didn't ask for that information, so I feel like it's probably more the council's mistake in that 6-month period that we didn't do that. But I'm with Rachel. We do expect the audit to, you know, we have instruments in place to pull things out like that. I don't know either way. I'll have to investigate more. I'm saying, I don't feel like this would, oh, okay.
And I would say that's criminal activity.
It's showing here that professional consultants are considered.
Well, that is, that's the exact statute verbatim.
This is connected to that, just, you know, from, you know.
But
from
what
the
I
state
was
board
gonna
of
say
accounts.
earlier is that we have the theft of monies and drugs of the sheriff's department, and the sheriff hires his own investigator to investigate. Now, I mean, that's ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous. And then we're paying, the county's paying this man, I don't know, is he an employee?
No, he's not an employee, he's a vendor.
So I guess
Marty,
what begs the
Lucas,
question
I'm
in
sorry,
my
Marty,
mind
Lucas, Would
is.
this be a scenario where we would want to do some more discovery before we hash so much of this out?
Well, yeah, I really want to say, I wouldn't want to say, you know, too much about it because it's, you know, I mean, while I was, you know, somewhat aware of some of the issues, but I don't have an opinion about these particular, you know, because I haven't done the background to have an opinion that would be.
Well, let's have a meeting about it. We've had 5 meetings about the issues that we've got with the prosecutor and nothing's ever been solved.
But we don't decide court of law in commissioners, no offense to commissioners, or the council meeting, so I'm just not even sure if that's.
We've been paying this guy for 11 months now. 11 months. Have you seen any kind of report or
We've been paying
anything?
a prosecutor for 3 years now. She hasn't done her job.
Careful with that, Bill.
No, hey, no, that's a fact. Mark?
Maybe this is something.
Yeah, I mean, probably you should get some of the lazy officers you got to file some
can't.
reports.
All right.
Let's not do this
Yeah,
here.
I mean, you're letting them abuse the prosecutor. She's not here to defend herself. That's all this guy is here to do, is to deflect
No, I'm here to defend
from
myself. and
the
my wife.
sheriff. All he's doing is deflecting from the sheriff and trying to put it on to the prosecutor. Prosecutor has no control over that room down there.
What was the next question? The next complaint was on the health link position. What was your question on that?
Who are you asking it to, Pam?
Marty?
Marty.
How is it that she knows all this stuff? Huh?
It's a small county.
I never talked to her.
Obviously.
How does she know all this stuff?
Obviously.
You
But this isn't-
started to ask a question.
Well, I mean, I am wondering,
My job.
you know, the way this is being paid, should this have been a contract we saw before we started paying on it?
We don't, I mean, you guys don't contract with vendors, so
Right.
no.
Okay,
I mean, on the auditor side, I don't see where the problem is.
okay.
Just from the auditor financial side of it. He's a vendor, we're paying him,
All right.
then what? It's not over any amount where it has to be bid out, or you have to get quotes.
He's acting the roles, but the deputy, he's taking
He's
reports,
a special deputy.
special deputy.
But we
So
have,
that's a vendor?
but that, yeah, we have many vendors like that. We have vendors that are stationed in the assessor's office that we just approved a contract for because it's over a certain amount. I mean, we do have vendors that work in our buildings. But this particular one is not over a certain amount that it had to come to the commissioners. So on the money side, I don't
Could
see
there
a,
be a need for a vendor? A particular vendor? Don't you get to decide that as long as you're paying them?
If it's over a certain amount,
Well,
correct.
what's the amount?
We haven't paid them hardly anything.
but
Under-
no, what's the amount that meets the threshold when it has to come before us?
Oh, for, you guys like to see over $25,000. It's not state statute, but you do like to see items
Okay.
over $25,000. State test statute is over $100,000.
Okay,
in Starke, we've been at 25,000 for a long time
Yeah.
before anybody here.
Yeah.
For like truck bids and, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, he was brought in to conduct an investigation. Have you seen a report? I mean, there's commissary funds and you don't have any control over commissary funds, but that's still, I mean, what's he doing to get that money?
I will say that the commissary funds are very unique, and when I asked the State Board of Accounts, they said it's very similar in every county. It's a very unique scenario. It's very discretionary for the sheriff, not just the sheriff, all the previous sheriffs. It's just the nature
but
of
as
it.
far as the council and commissioners, they're not a part of investigate, I mean, they're not a part of court of law in that manner.
You're right.
So it's not, I mean, it wouldn't come to them.
So the sheriff gets to investigate himself because.
No, actually, he was sworn in by Leslie. You might want to get your facts straight, Marty.
Is Leslie online?
No,
It's kind of hard to debate them.
Right, so-
Some of these things
I
involve.
mean, maybe
Leslie,
she
it's
should, if
probably-
she has concerns, maybe she should come to the board.
No,
of
I have
Commissioners.
concerns too. My own concerns. I'm not addressing any of her concerns.
it's-
I'm addressing my own
But
concerns.
it's hard to talk about this without her here if she was a
I
part
mean,
of the
if it's
contract.
relevant and if Leslie can be there, this is kind of more a fiscal thing. I mean, I'd be willing to, talk about this at the council meeting. Because it sounds like we made more of a mistake. than the
It
commission.
does, I mean, the statute does say, where it does give, and given that I haven't studied the background of it, there might be more. It does say the sheriff's designee at the sheriff's or the sheriff's designee's discretion and without appropriation by the county fiscal body
Yeah.
may disperse money from the, commissary fund for a list of things. And so, there is some independence. The sheriff often has some independence, but once again, I'm just shooting from the hip on that because I wasn't aware of this dispute, actually.
So we're calling this man as a independent contractor. For what purpose? I mean, what is he independent contractor of?
this.
Could I ask one question on that, Mark, just real quick?
Yeah.
And just for my knowledge here, Marty, too, because I'm wondering like where we're taking this whole thing with what went on or whatever else. Would that not have ended at the point that that person would have been charged for this? Like, we wouldn't need to investigate anymore, right? Once charges were in
Correct.
place. So like, is that not being protracted because it's an ongoing investigation? I don't know. I'm just asking, but is that?
Well, because Leslie didn't charge it, so we ended up getting a special prosecutor appointed by the judge to take this case over and prosecute it. Because she publicly said it in an email that she was not charging the suspect.
And does he have an end date to complete his investigation?
As soon as it's done.
So he will not complete his investigation until charges are filed by
Correct.
whoever.
And then he done an audit of the.
And he never
evidence
filed,
room.
nobody's ever filed a report in this matter. No report. That's,
Marty, we got a special prosecutor.
nobody's filed a report to Leslie and all the time before the special prosecutor. And there's lots of cases out there where reports haven't been filed because officers just aren't up to doing the job.
Well, I mean, that would be hearsay though, if this was court. So I mean, not really taking that into account, but this specifically, I am willing to readdress or continue to address that part about the commissary at the council meeting, just so you know. I mean, and it sounds like overall, like what you're bringing before the commissioners, I think it would be fair to let them have some discovery on it. I'm just saying, like, it sounds like some of
Yeah,
it's
this
kind of
needs
the
to be
first time you're
given a bit
hearing
more.
it, so. Right, I mean, would you agree, Rachel, that some of this that's
You
coming?
might have to check with
Discovery for
somebody
what?
before.
I don't understand, like, what's,
I mean, I don't even know if all the things that are being said, like, I don't know if all three of them even know.
what do they have jurisdiction
Yeah,
over?
but
I mean,
there's lack of
why-
authority. That's why I'm going back to the commissary thing. That's the council thing. I don't know.
Yeah, we can address the
There's no authority
commissary.
over an elected official, including the prosecutor, including the sheriff. I mean, to that extent to where the
What are
commissioners can
the-
say, it sounds like some people are saying you didn't do your job. This just says this, but it's still elected officials that the commissioners don't have any
Well,
authority.
Marty will acknowledge this. The prosecutor has as much discretion as sheriff has the discretion. And she can charge people for crimes. Now, this fella,
Or
The
at
evidence
least
was
choose
turned
not
over to
to,
the
at
state
least not
police.
choose not to charge them.
Right,
I would agree with that.
right.
Yes.
And this is a misdemeanor, a class B or A misdemeanor. And this investigation supposedly is still ongoing.
It's not a misdemeanor, I can tell you that.
So that's the problem. That's the problem. He wants to run the prosecutor's office in addition to the sheriff's office.
No, I don't.
So-
I got enough to worry about, Marty.
Yeah. That's the problem.
The main
Okay.
point is a department head hired a vendor. If it's, that
Right.
vendor is under a certain amount, that's up to me as a department head.
Right now, I don't think us three can solve anything with this right now. I mean, it's kind of above us, really.
As much as anything can be.
Right.
So we're just gonna continue to pay this man out of county funds for doing what?
Well, the council is gonna follow up on that because that's their role.
Doing what?
I don't know, we'll, talk about that.
Independent contractor? Okay,
Well, I'm assuming that if he is doing an investigation, he has daily reports that he's working on. I mean, I don't think it's unfair for us to ask, if he's producing what he's being paid for. I mean, but again, that would still be Bill, unfortunately, Bill, since he's still within the law, it would still be his decision on whether he wants to contract with this person still or not. I mean, we don't have the authority to say we're not going to pay this, because of where it's being paid here. As far as the other funds, we'll take a look at that. I don't know where it's being paid from either, but I will take a look now for sure.
Sir, did you have a question for?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sir, I'm a vendor, independent contractor. I do work for quite a few counties from top to bottom, east to west in the state. I think I've got 23 county boards of commissioners that I do work for. And within that role also, I do quite a few work for sheriffs and county jails. And I am contracted over the last 4 years, quite a bit by sheriffs that will look at some or have me get involved in something. And very often it does come out of commissary, and we've hashed that out public. It's precedent that the sheriff, I do maintenance project, any building systems, the physical assets and maintenance of the buildings. So the sheriffs sometimes have a lot of building systems. The jails are beat up a lot. They're 24/7 facilities. Sheriffs themselves outside of the commissioners have brought me in and paid for out of commissary on quite a few occasions throughout the state. So I have no clue of this. I'm just saying that we're talking strictly about commissary, that I have nothing to do with law enforcement. I deal with maintenance, and I'm paid out.
and that's
of
understandable if
commissary.
you're an independent contractor, but we're talking about an independent contractor acting as a deputy.
I'm
So,
just saying from a commissary.
Just for the record, could you identify yourself?
My name is Matt Steckley. I'm the president of Core Facilities.
Okay.
So I'm a facilities management consulting firm. I just wanted to put that out there that this is not Stark County alone. A lot of counties and a lot of sheriffs use that commissary to help and improve and run their operations. That's all. That's all my input is.
But that could add something different than what we've been talking about. Certainly, you're an independent contractor, and I'm sure your work is listed on.
We don't pay an individual, we pay Coppins Investigation LLC, we don't pay Brett Coppins, if you want to clarify that.
Okay.
Marty, also, Marty Lucas, if you wouldn't mind, before we have our council meeting, then could you also give us an official opinion on what?
Well, yeah, I need a little more information probably.
Yeah,
That's
well, that's
the
why I said
thing.
discovery,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Mr. Bedrock gave me this, gave me the statute, and it certainly appears that there's some independent authority, and we have an ordinance too, but I think it makes sense that, but it's not intended to be unlimited either, right?
Right.
So, it would make sense that you could look into whether, in your opinion, the services being rendered fell within that authority. If you see what I'm saying,
Right.
It's not just a slush fund that can be used for anything.
No,
right?
but I mean, I also think too, just to the point, we can also work with the sheriff's department just to see in perpetuity, is it valuable in continuance or, there's a number of things we can look at.
Right.
I can't say at this point either, so. But again, the council does not have management authority over the sheriff aside from his fiscal
Well,
activities.
that's just one of the general things about county government that's tricky is that you both have an overall organization and you have independent elected officials, and just about every elected official has certain areas of authority that are within their, bailiwick, and certainly the sheriff is one of the, the sheriff and the prosecutor are two of the strongest examples of having a great deal of independence in their authority, and of course the commissioners are the chief executive power, and then the council's the chief fiscal, but yet, then they have a statute where the sheriff has fiscal authority that isn't under the supervision of the council. So it's been described as a Byzantine system.
Just to clarify something Sheriff Doolin said, Leslie Baker swore in this investigator that he brought to her office when he employed him as to investigate the monies and drugs that are missing from the evidence room. And this was done in February. Now, that was all she did, as far as I know.
Well,
There's no contract.
the reason I done that, Marty, was
Well,
because.
I'm
me
not
and-
saying, I'm not
No,
questioning.
me and
that,
Leslie
but
had
I'm just
talked, we
telling
had a
you,
discussion.
That's,
She didn't
that's
have the
what,
funds in her budget to do it. So I said, I'll do it. I'll go ahead and do it.
I thought he said it was going on for 3.5 years. I don't know what the hell he's, okay.
Yeah, actually,
She swore-
Leslie was down there working in the evidence room, trying to find it, doing destruct orders and everything else.
Okay.
We ain't gonna be able to resolve this tonight, because I know the council's gonna have to look at
Yes.
it more, and we'll have to go from there.
Yeah, and I mean,
Not easy, didn't you?
obviously it has the potential to be an ongoing case, so I think it's probably a good idea not really to, speculate too much,
Right.
because we don't want to sway anything that could happen in the future. Anytime something like this happens within a county, the government, we're the most embarrassed by it. Like, I hate that it happened personally. It happens. It was out of our control. It's out of the sheriff's control, but I think with Leslie's help, also, all of us together, we need to move past this and learn from it.
But you have the authority as the commissioners to demand that they submit an interim report. I mean, he's working on this thing 11 months.
It's
Let's
something
find
that-
out for sure. Let's let us consult with Marty, and we're gonna continue to dig into this.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have anything for us?
Throw something on the positive side. I don't know if you're aware, I know Charlie is, but I don't know if the rest of the commissioners are aware, we did have our countywide exercise in North Judson. The interaction with the school was awesome. I mean, it went really well, the radio system worked well. I brought the command trailer the day before, we got it all set up, everybody was in their places. There were a few things we learned about it, I'll share the after action report and get it prepared, it's just, there was so much building up to getting to that point. We've got everybody's input. We had a really nice meeting with the students after we had our meeting for the hot wash. We had a meeting with the students. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We learned a lot about the communication between school and our dispatch. Sheriff's Department learned a lot from it. We're planning a countywide exercise again before the end of the year to incorporate all the school systems so we can retest. I explained like one of the reasons why we designed this exercise in that way was because I learned in a state meeting that really no county in Indiana or in the US has a really good infrastructure to communicate, maybe by 911, but once an emergency happens, it happens via radio. And that really wasn't set up before. So we're partnering with each one of the school superintendents. They're all three very on board with it. And so we're going to test it. Hopefully, if everything still aligns, even if we have to use our own equipment. We have the grant equipment for the 800 megahertz radios, but we're helping them get integrated into the 800 system so they can purchase some of their own hardware and we'll be able to manage an event like that, which again, it went quite smoothly with just, some of the really early stuff that we did with North Judson. So just wanted to throw a positive in there that they played one really well. So.
Is that a date thing?
And I did mention this to the commissioners, they were okay with this, but yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So the other thing is that if we have an event with an emergency event, we have what's called the EOC or the Emergency Operations Center. And so the commissioners would activate, basically would have a countywide unified incident command that happens in this room. And so it's been several years back. At one time we had marker boards that were active and they were quirky, but we had those hanging there. But one of the things that we identified through the exercise and where we were working is that really we needed something like this in our EOC. So that's why that's here. So obviously for everybody else's use as well, but Richard made this happen. So that way, if we do have to set up incident command here, we've got somewhere where we can, draw out our incident action plan, make assignments and stuff.
And it's got a lot more real estate on it than the old one.
Yeah, this is a lot better. Well, that's right. You put the smart boards up, right? Like you can speak to the fact they were kind of quirky.
They were,
technology at that time.
they were of questionable use, the ones that I inherited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be a lot more effective.
Yeah, I look forward to putting on my old fire marshal hat and going through that report.
There you go. Yeah.
Think you had a question for us?
Yeah, I have a question. It's kind of hard to follow all the things that have gone on here so far, but I did want to bring up the solar farm once again and give you an opportunity if there's something new that you might have to share with the rest of us that's going on with the solar farm that might be of interest to the people in the Starke County.
I don't,
Oh, I know that.
we're working on the road use agreement.
Yeah.
That for around Bass Lake.
Yeah, I hope you protect it as much as you can. Because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, the other thing too was that there was 90 acres that was the one gentleman was hoping to get converted over to agricultural use.
You're talking right
The
north
red
of.
one.
Yes, that one.
I think that's,
I've been led to believe that he will not be a part of the project because.
Well, I know that's what you had agreed to at the time, but I thought you were still not quite concerned about, how you're gonna
It's
do
too
that.
late.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was the company itself that decided.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Really? Oh. Well, I know there was a section over there right along 210 that they said they never were gonna consider. Thank goodness for that. That would have been right alongside there.
Yeah.
But I mean, anything else that you might think of, we'd like to know as much as possible, because we felt that this project's been going on for over 2 years. And a lot of people had no clue, just no clue. So we're just trying to stay on top of this, but as best we can.
Right.
And I know it's a tough job for you guys, it really is, and you gotta make some tough decisions.
There will not be a planning commission meeting this month, so nothing will be discussed there either.
But like I said, the two things that I hope you consider is limiting the amount of land used for solar farms in the county, and also the size of the farms. I think that 13,000 acre one is just massive. It's,
well,
I
that's,
believe, the biggest in the United States.
that crosses the county
It
line.
crosses the county line too, I know. I don't know how much of it's in Starke, but I would think more than half.
Roughly.
What?
I think it's roughly 4,000.
That's it in Starke? The rest is in Pulaski?
Pretty sure, but
I thought
don't
it's the other way
hold me
around.
to that as
Yeah.
an official number.
Okay.
Is there a
I don't
map
know, buddy.
that's available
No.
for citizens to see? What are you working off of so that you know where these plats are?
I think it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually you can see-
Yeah, there's one in the recorder.
Yeah.
Right.
Recorder's up, should have.
And mind you, the one in the recorder's office is actually recorded leases.
Yeah.
So that is, not to be confused with the actual footprint necessarily of a project or where they'll build the facilities. But that is a public record that you can look at.
Is it still being worked on in Pulaski? I know they stopped it for a while, some technicalities.
I know there's some sort of activity, but as to what's going on with it, I don't know, because I'm
As far as,
not part of the Pulaski County government.
as far as the road use agreement, I did want to ask you guys, that just for like a Mammoth project, or is that a countywide?
There will
ordinance, or-
be road use agreements. I think I can confidently say that there will be agreements in place for all.
That are all different.
Yeah, they're all like certain roads they can use in that area. I think that's gonna be what it, that's how it's gonna work. So they have to use those roads to work on those
Is there
projects.
Is there any other pieces of the puzzle that they're missing that? In other words, they have their building permits and everything, or what all did they actually?
Permits have yet to be issued. They still have not been issued any building permits.
Pretty much anything.
Or anything.
Wow. So,
I have a question. I'm sorry. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. With one of the waste products that comes from broken panels through time is you get leaching. That happens through like hailstorms, tornadoes, earthquake, haven't had one in quite a while. But I think it's called cadmium. Yeah,
Cadmium.
and it leaches. And it goes into the soil and it will make your soil and everything, you're done. Okay,
I know.
worthless. What is their containment, the company that you're working with, what is their containment process and restoration process for the land that they're
No.
leasing?
No, she's talking about if a panel breaks.
Yeah, what do they plan, how do they plan on, what's the restoration process for the soil that's underneath there? The one that's gonna protect the citizens, and then, you know, the land that's underneath there, because it gets into your water
So.
and your
I
wells.
personally haven't dug into that, but I know our
But we do have a
surveyor
bonding
has,
process.
because he's involved with drainage, he's following up, he's been looking into things like the project around near the Indianapolis airport to see
And
what's
this is the
similar.
largest one actually in the United States, correct?
That's
Okay, so
what
I've
I've
been
been told,
thinking.
you take everything between the two counties.
Right, so you're in, now I understand that the people of Knox, you know, they have city water, but then the rest of the citizens in the county, they have well water. So this has a direct impact on their drinking water. Now, what they
Yes.
shower with.
Oh, I know,
And if
I'm going to be one of those people.
Right.
potentially.
You know, what they're bathing their children with, they're cooking with, you know, their animals. It's just something I'm wondering what you guys as county officials have thought about, or maybe had discussions with the company, what they plan to do with groundwater contamination, with the known.
And just for the record, because I don't think I've seen you before, could you identify yourself?
Yes, no, I haven't been here before. You probably saw my mother. I am Amy Folkers Garmin.
And you live in the county?
I own property out of Bass Lake. We've been here
Okay.
100 years. I'm George and Anna Folkers' granddaughter,
Okay,
and also Florence and Elmer's granddaughter.
okay,
Been here a while.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I do have a question about the solar farm issues. I have farm ground and I was approached to lease
Mhm.
ground to a company. And you said that there are a number of recorded leases.
Mhm.
Is there, I mean, eventually, I'm assuming that those leases, they will start work on the ground that's been leased.
Mhm.
Do we have a plan as to how many acres of land would be used in
That's
Starke?
between the solar companies and landowners and whoever they contact, like yourself, if you would have decided to go with them or not. It's not for us to
So we
dig
have-
into.
That's like.
No, I know,
that
I
same
know
area
that I
that's
can
right
do that.
over
I'm
there.
just wondering, was there any plan since?
No, I'd prefer to keep the government out of people's way.
So if we, as a county.
There is more to that though, actually. Actually, the commissioners had afforded Marty and I to do some negotiations and work on things for solar farm and
Right,
things like
yeah.
that. One of the things that I had mentioned and Marty thought it was a good idea and the commissioners thought it was a good idea, and we still haven't dropped that, is we have talked about,
Mhm.
as things grow, putting a consortium together. Seed people, farmers. Actually, I even mentioned this when I was at the Sanpure meeting, that idea was starting to come up. Charlie was there. And so like, that's still on the board for the future, to sit a bunch of thinkers down, stakeholders and thinkers, and say, there should be probably some limit on that. I don't think we're close yet, but.
Could I interject also? And that's part of, there was action today. The board, hired probably Indiana's leading attorney expert on this subject, Rick Hall, to represent the county. He's represented most of the other counties that have substantial projects like this. And I've spoken with him, and he certainly is going to provide the county, a lot of expertise in this. It's with the Barnes and Thornburg firm, which is one of the largest firms in Indiana. And, he's developed expertise in this matter. One of the things I discussed with him was that not necessarily an issue right now, but an issue for going forward is to plan for whether there ought to be a limit to the total amount of solar development in the county. But of course, that's not going to, just as Commissioner Gorley says, this isn't going to be based on interfering with particular contracts between individuals any more than the county says we can't grow any more corn in Indiana, or we can't grow any more trees. I mean, in Starke County, It's just not the role of the county to do that. Now, what they can
Wouldn't it be
do.
fun to start talking about limiting the use of glyphosate in the county?
Yeah, right, exactly. There's many things like that. And probably the state would come in, and even if the county if the county overreaches on that, then the state could easily come in and pass legislation that would stop that. And there's certainly a risk of that. That's one of the things. Another thing Attorney Hall is going to be helpful, I think, for the county in is he's already engaged in some lobbying, since he represents several counties that have these developments, to make sure that the state doesn't pass legislation that would be harmful to the communities that have these facilities in them. I mean, you got to keep in mind that politically speaking.
Wrote up that resolution we passed to oppose the state legislation last year. So yeah, he's a good knowledgeable guy.
He really is. I was really
And it's gonna
impressed,
be a
you
great
know, by
access to
the
us.
depth of his knowledge. And also, he was also, you know, a great person to, like, for example, we had done one thing here that nobody else had done. And we had included in our agreement with Mammoth that there wouldn't be any large scale clearing of forests because, you know, eventually these things are going to go away. And, you know, I think it makes sense to try to keep the county, preserve the county's long-term, you know, appearance by preserving, you know, the forest land that we have, so that these are on areas that could be put back into farming without, anyway. Doesn't mean they're never going to cut a tree down, but it means they're not going to bulldoze 200 acres at a time and that sort of thing. So, you know, that is going to be a big factor, and the issue about how to go about looking at, you know, where the acreage gets too big. Initially, what the information we're receiving is that the grid is going to be maxed out by what's here already. It's already been leased, and so there is unlikely to be anything major more in the near future. That'll give the county a chance to make some plans. And if they want to do zone, you know, the county could zone areas so that they're less open to solar. But you always got to remember that when you do that, that there's people that could have made a lot of money that they're not going to make, you know. So it's not something you do lightly just because you don't want to see a solar panel that you tell somebody else that they're not going to make 4 times as much money as they're making today. You know, they don't do that to you. Most people, especially people that maybe work outside the county, you know.
Right now, the limit is sort of serendipitous.
At the same time, though, you know, it's hard for.
The grid is.
I
the grid is the one.
understand where a guy would be upset, but it's not like if you kept him from making $4,000, it's not like you went and took $4,000 from him though at the same time, you know, I suppose it was an opportunity, you know.
Well, it depends on how you
It's-
evaluate opportunity cost.
Yeah. You know,
Well,
but-
you gotta find a balance in how much.
I will say.
No, that's a legitimate
One of
point.
the-
It's a balance though.
One of the things that I kind of been thinking or going off of is, you know, if you take a stroll down 10, they're going to Wheatfield, they already started that, and I think a lot of us honestly should just kind of wait and sit back and see how a lot of that goes. You know, I mean, yeah, I know it's gonna take a long time really to see what the long-term effects are, but I can tell you this in my opinion, them farms ain't never gonna be the same. You drive by it, I mean, they're stripping off topsoil and, you know, bringing up subsoil, level everything out and all that, burying underground like that.
Well, I think you raise a good point. That's why they don't want to bury the cable, for example. Like Mammoth is kind of proposing some of those things already. And I will say.
Yeah, that's a different project over there.
We've
but
never
now-
been presented with anything about.
Anything
leaching-
about-
chemicals leaching either from the
That's-
panels. Like
that's-
that's something completely new. I just want to say because this is a
Yeah.
public meeting.
Right.
I don't want the public after this to go, oh, commissioners and council, you guys are agreeing to something that's gonna be pollute the waters. We've
No.
never,
Well, these-
ever had any evidence of that.
No,
So-
I think that's right. I'm sorry, I would like to respond to that as well. I've done lots of background reading on this subject.
Yes.
We didn't like ignore it or just not pretend it was coming. Did lots of preparation, and I'm not discounting anything anybody says.
Yeah.
But I have not seen that there's any evidence of, you know, cadmium, which is a serious chemical. I mean, you know, it would be bad, but I haven't seen that there's any evidence of serious, you know, extensive cadmium contamination from these projects. But, you know, it doesn't mean that it's not worth paying attention to that, but I don't want
Even in the
anybody to get
tornadoes.
the impression that is necessarily true.
Here's another idea that I actually almost thought of, you know, has anybody ever seen, or has anybody taken like a soil study of like where the panels are there at the airport in Indy?
Yeah, I think surveyor has talked to somebody down there about that.
I
Yeah.
knew you said he did. Did he come up with anything? Or have
I don't-
anything to show for it?
I don't remember the numbers he gave me or what the results were, but I know he's got that information.
That would be something I think a lot of people would like to see.
I know they haven't experienced any in Kokomo. I mean, that's just what they said when we toured it. but-
Well, yeah, but that's what they said, Dave. It's a lot better than people when you could actually
Well,
say, here's.
we were
what the
there, we were
maps
there
are,"
with a college
You know,
group there that was focused on green energy and its impact on the environment. We just happened to be tagging along with them. So those were some of the questions that they were asking. But I will say, again, I just wanted to say that because Marty has done an immense amount of research on this when these questions have come up. And I've followed a little bit as the designee from the commissioners to work with Marty on a lot of this stuff. I'm just saying, to date, we have never seen any evidence that speaks to any kind of risk to the groundwater or anything like that. In fact, there are so many things so far that have pointed to it being a good neighbor as opposed to being, you
I can
know.
hook you up with multiple studies if you'd like. There are studies that happened 2015. There were, there was a tornado in Southern California that broke 200,000 solar modules, and what happened there? I'm sure there associated groundwater contamination out there. And then they were trying to do for
Well, that's
Google, for
okay. Send
Microsoft.
it to me. I mean, I hate to
Just
belabor this.
Right, once again, I'm not.
Hit Google Scholar.
We've done a lot of Googling. I mean.
No, I mean.
Google
it's-
Scholar
Okay.
and do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, like, even personally, like one of the things I'm on the council, but I also have a double major in biology and chemistry. So things like that interest me. So I know what you're speaking of. But what I'm saying is, I do a lot of research myself. I haven't found a lot of that. So I'll take what you've got. Let me see it. I'll present any opinion I have too with the commissioners. But right now, just you looking at your phone, me not having my phone, I don't.
I have
wanna deter,
notes,
so-
and I'm pulling from studies, so.
I mean,
You know what? I think we should plant a solar panel out here, break it, and then go. take a solar
Somebody should do a study with 50 of them or something like that, 100 of them, break them open and see what happens.
Yeah.
That would be a
but
definitive
voltaic
study.
cells of today are not the same as.
I know they're not.
2015.
They had a breakthrough
They're much
about 10 or 15, yeah, 10,
Well,
12 years ago.
that's the
Big
other,
breakthrough.
that's the other big question too, is, before you guys go handing out building permits, figuring out what make. them all.
And that's one thing that still has yet to be evaluated. and will be evaluated.
They asked me for ever wanting us to sign up, and we did eventually sign 100 acres up, and I'm not excited about it. But
Mammoth has committed in December, if it's feasible, to pay for a public meeting. Like, they have no skin in the game with what's going on in San Pierre or what could potentially happen in the north. But I mean, that's just the type of partner they are or neighbor they want to be, is they're willing to sit down and, it helps the other ones too. And they have no, they already have an agreement.
in my dealings with them, they do talk a lot to you. They'll always answer the phone, but you gotta be careful with them too, though. There are things that Nick always likes to beat around the bush on, and one of them was make a model panel, so.
So a meeting in this December 2021?
Yes.
And today's the, what, 6th?
Yeah.
6th, and
That's why I said, I'm
Between
not
now
sure
and
if it's still gonna
25th.
happen because of the timing, but it's possible.
yeah, okay, so, but you're talking about, like here, I have the Electric Power Research Institute undertook a study for US owning solar owning utilities to plan for end of life and concluded that solar panel disposal in regular landfills is not recommended in case module break and toxic materials leach into soil. So disposal is potentially a major
That's why they
issue.
don't want you to throw car batteries in landfills. We're not debating that. And we also.
No, but
there's
this
gonna
is
be-
why you need from Mammoth, what is their end of life? What do they plan on doing? Because
That's
you
why it's
as
gonna be
county
bonded.
council
And
members
that's,
do
and that's
not
one of
want
the
to get
things that has
stuck.
to be in place before we issue. permits.
And we, as landowners, need to know what that is and where you're going. Need to see a map. Yeah, we need to see the permits, the permits, we
We
need
want
to
to
see
be
the
part of this
maps.
whole thing.
Yeah, we don't want to
Citizens
just,
of the county.
we feel like it's been sprung on us. And
I mean, it's a business, like
Yeah.
Mike said. I mean, we only have so much authority as government officials to.
yes, and it rests
Well,
squarely on your
yeah.
shoulders, and we need to know about things, and you have the responsibility.
Yeah, but you guys are also holding the authority to issue permits or not.
Well,
But it's not
that's
real-
why
it's not
Charlie said
really their
before, let's
board.
wait and see.
Mhm.
And we can change our ordinances in the future. Right now, as Marty pointed out, one of the things we have done some pretty solid research on is the grid doesn't need any more power right now. Honestly, I talked to Jim Pressel about this the other day too, because he's working on a bunch of things with electric cars and things beyond that. Like, that knowledge just isn't there yet, but REMC and NIPSCO and all these companies aren't gonna build more towers and big cable to handle all that power when they don't have it sold yet. I mean, even these projects, you know, they're pre-sold because there has to be a need for that. Right now, there isn't that kind of need for the energy. So it's just, it's not gonna happen
Yeah,
anytime
but
soon.
what's happening with the places they're shutting down, like Wheatfield and the big
So
power plant
Wheatfield-
up in Michigan City?
Yeah,
Somebody's gotta fill that void with all the
Well,
electricity.
actually, if we were at the Nextera meeting, and what we found out from NIPSCO is that 75% of their current capacity will be satisfied with the project that they're partnered with the Nextera project in the fence plan right now. At least this is what they said at the meeting. So, but with better lighting, you know, more efficient technologies and things like that, they think that that might be, again, this is just from that meeting.
Texas found out the hard way
But
last winter.
I
For
think
the
you need to
record-
research that better.
Yeah, I think it's, like, yeah.
For the record, though, this starts with the planning commission,
Yes.
not them.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree, but
all these
I didn't
concerns,
come here
the
to-
planning commission.
It's kind of gotten out of control a little bit, but
Right.
I did want you to know that we just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta keep us in the loop on all of this. We don't want this to happen again, like, you know.
The planning commission meets every month except for December, the second
There are questions.
Monday of the month,
Second
right?
Monday of the month.
Second
Planning
Monday of the
Commission.
month,
And do
yeah.
they meet in this room, in this
Yes.
building?
Yes.
At what time?
5:30. Yeah, that's where like all this starts, not
Yeah.
necessarily with them.
Is there
And it's on our
a
website. too.
potential problem with to show up to a plan commission meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
one of you can.
one of us. Not
Well,
both.
he's on the
Brian
board,
sits on the.
He's
board.
on the
Brian,
planning.
or
yeah.
he's on the board.
No, I asked that because Brian asked
Is
me to
that
come to
still a
one
problem
once, but
too?
I told him no.
Yeah, because they
Yes.
could possibly make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You can give notice of it, and then you can do it.
No,
Right.
because then I'd have to show up, so you're not doing
You know,
it.
you just don't confuse the idea, of as long as it's a
I'm
public
not going
meeting,
to. if I don't
right?
have to.
I mean, we talked about some of these rules, the really tight rules on executive sessions, but you can, a public meeting, you just, as long as you give notice, you can do it.
Okay.
You can't make any decisions there, but
I
you
know,
can,
Brian, I
that's
won't
all
be
that,
showing up
you
to
can just
the
tell
plan
everybody.
commission. And that's why. All right.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We just need to have good conversation.
Yeah.
Open conversation.
Absolutely.
I'll check this out. I'll do the breaking solar panel. That is a bad idea.
Hey, go buy one. Let us know.
I'll throw some money at it.
You do it by your will.
By the way, one thing, there's an article in the Lakes magazine about Fulton County, what they're doing with solar power down there. I think they're doing it themselves.
Yeah, I got enough, I got enough
They got
here.
a storage system there, which this one doesn't have a storage.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't-
But it's all invested.
Is there anyone else with anything for us? Motion adjourned.
So